In the heart of Wyoming's wind-swept plains, where hope often rides away with the tumbleweeds, Jack Morgan stakes everything on one final chance. His own farm lost to drought, he takes a job restoring a mysterious woman's abandoned ranch. Sarah seems different from the usual ranch owners. There's something in the way she handles a fence post, how she studies spreadsheets by lamplight, how her calloused hands tell a story different from her quiet smile. As Jack breathes life back into the land, he notices the ranch isn't all that's coming alive. But Sarah harbors a secret that could change everything, one that could make or break not just the ranch, but two hearts finding their way home. What secret could be worth hiding behind a broken-down ranch and borrowed work clothes? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The bank's foreclosure notice lay crumpled in Jack Morgan's weathered hands, its crisp corporate letterhead a stark contrast to his soil-stained fingers. Third-generation Morgan land, about to slip away like water through cupped palms. He smoothed the paper against his kitchen table, the same oak surface where his grandfather had taught him to read, where his father had shown him how to balance the farm's books. Final notice, it proclaimed in bold letters that seemed to mock 30 years of dawn-to-dusk labor. The drought had taken everything, first the crops, then the equipment sold piece by piece, and now the land itself hung by a thread thinner than spider silk. Outside his window, the setting sun painted the fallow fields in shades of amber and gold, a cruel reminder of harvests past. The kitchen radio droned quietly, its evening farm report offering little comfort, until seeking experienced ranch hand for complete property restoration. Room board and competitive salary. Inquire at Big Sky Ranch, north end of Wheatland County. Jack's calloused finger pressed the radio's volume button. He'd heard of Big Sky Ranch, everyone in 3 counties had. Once the pride of Wyoming. Ranching now, it sat abandoned, its buildings slowly surrendering to wind and weather. The owner had died years ago, leaving no heirs, no will, just stories of glory days and forgotten potential. He pulled his laptop closer, the ancient machine protesting as he opened it. The job listing appeared on the county's agricultural board, sparse in details but rich in promise. The salary mentioned would cover his bank payments with enough left over to keep his head above water. If he could hold on to his own land for 6 months, maybe the rain would return, maybe the winds would change. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. Sometimes God closes a door to open a barn. She'd always had a way of making farming wisdom sound like scripture. The phone felt heavy in his hand as he dialed the number. 3 rings, then a woman's voice. Clear, professional, with an edge of something he couldn't quite place. Big Sky Ranch? Sarah speaking. Ma'am, I'm calling about the restoration position, Jack said, years of respect for landowners automatically straightening his spine. Jack Morgan here. I've got 30 years' experience with everything from fencing to full barn rebuilding. A pause, then, Mr. Morgan, your name's come up in town. They say you're the best handyman in 3 counties. I work hard, and I work honest, he replied, the same words his father had taught him to live by. Come by tomorrow morning, 8 sharp. We'll talk details. Another pause. And Mr. Morgan, bring your tools. If things work out, we'll start right away. The line went dead before he could respond. Jack stared at his phone, then at the foreclosure notice still mocking him from the table. Outside, a coyote called to the rising moon, its lonely song carrying across empty fields that had once burst with wheat. He stood, bones creaking like old hinges, and walked to his workshop. The tools waited in their familiar places. Hammers, saws, wrenches, each worn to the shape of his grip through decades of use. Some had been his father's, a few his grandfather's. Each told a story of buildings raised, machines mended, fences stretched across Wyoming's endless horizons. One last chance, he whispered to the gathering darkness. His fingers traced the smooth handle of his grandfather's hammer, worn silk-soft by 3 generations of calloused hands. One last dance. In the distance, storm clouds gathered over the mountains, promising rain that might or might not come. But for the first time in months, Jack Morgan felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Hope. He spent the night organizing his tools, checking each one as carefully as a surgeon preparing instruments. Whatever Big Sky Ranch needed, he'd be ready. The work might save his farm, but more than that, it would give him purpose again. A chance to create instead of watching things crumble. As he worked, the radio kept him company, its weather report promising clear skies and warm days. Ahead, perfect weather for rebuilding, perfect weather for a fresh start. Dawn found him already awake, staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. The face looking back had more grey than he remembered, more lines carved by sun and worry. But the eyes, his father's eyes, still held the same determination that had seen the Morgans through dust bowls and downturns, through feast and famine. Time to build something new, he told his reflection, and for the first time in months, his smile felt real. Big Sky Ranch materialized out of the morning mist like a sleeping giant. The main house stood proud despite its weathered bones, a two-story testament to better days. Jack's truck crunched over gravel as he pulled up to the front gate, its rusted hinges groaning in the dawn light. A woman in well-worn jeans and a faded workshirt stood waiting, leather work gloves tucked into her back pocket. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, her boots scuffed from actual use. Not what he'd expected from a ranch owner, especially not one who could afford to hire help. "Mr. Morgan," she extended a hand, grip firm and confident. "I'm Sarah." No last name offered. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, studied him with an intelligence that seemed to catalogue every detail. "You're early. I like that." "Yes, ma'am." He matched her grip, noting the calluses on her palm. Ranch owners didn't usually have working hands. "Thought I'd get a look at what we're dealing with in the good light." A smile touched her lips. "We? Sounds like you're already planning to take the job." "If you're offering it, I aim to earn it." She nodded toward his truck. "Those your tools? Bring them. We'll talk while we walk." Jack retrieved his toolbox, following Sarah as she led him around the property. She moved with purpose, pointing out broken fences, rotting support beams, a roof that needed immediate attention. Her knowledge surprised him, not just of what needed fixing, but how to fix it. "Previous owner was my uncle," she offered, catching his puzzled look. "Spent summers here as a kid, learning everything he'd teach me." A shadow crossed her face. "Always meant to come back, help him restore it. Time got away from me." "Time has a way of doing that," Jack agreed, noting how she sidestepped personal details. They reached the barn, its massive doors hanging askew. Sarah pulled them open with practiced ease, revealing a cavernous interior. Morning light filtered through gaps in the roof, illuminating old farm equipment and newer tools, still in their packaging. "I've got supplies ordered," she said, gesturing to stacks of lumber and roofing materials. "But I need someone who knows what they're doing. Someone who understands this isn't just about fixing things, it's about bringing something back to life." Jack ran his hand along a support beam, reading its history in the grain. "Wood still good. Needs work, but the bones are strong." He looked at her directly. "Like most things worth saving." Something flickered in her eyes, recognition maybe, or relief. "The job's 6 months minimum. Room and board in the guest house, plus salary." She named a figure that made his breath catch. "I know it's above market. I also know your reputation. This place deserves the best." A phone buzzed in her pocket. She checked it, face tightening almost imperceptibly. "Excuse me a moment." She stepped away, voice dropping as she answered. Jack watched her pace, noting how her posture changed, spine straightening, gestures becoming more clipped, professional. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable, like watching someone slip into a different skin. She returned moments later, the ranch owner once again. "Sorry about that. Where were we?" "Terms of employment," Jack said, deciding not to mention her change in demeanor. "I accept, by the way. When do we start?" Sarah's smile returned, genuine this time. "How about now? Help me fix this door. Show me what you can do." They worked together for the next hour, rehanging the barn door. She knew her way around tools, moved with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. But occasionally she'd hesitate, like someone remembering steps to a dance they hadn't performed in years. As the sun climbed higher, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was more than she appeared. The way she handled tools spoke of experience, but her phone manner hinted at boardrooms rather than barnyards. Even her calluses seemed recent, as if earned deliberately rather than over a lifetime of ranch work. But then she laughed at his suggestion for reinforcing the hinges, a genuine sound that echoed off the barn's high beams, and he pushed his doubts aside. Whatever her story, she clearly cared about bringing Big Sky Ranch back to life. For now, that was enough. The work contract sat between them on the kitchen table, its crisp pages at odds with the farmhouse's worn surfaces. Jack studied the terms while Sarah poured coffee into heavy ceramic mugs, the morning sun streaming through windows that desperately needed washing. Pretty detailed for ranch work, he observed, noting clauses about confidentiality and media contact. His weathered finger traced a line about maintaining property privacy. Expecting reporters to cover our fence mending? Sarah's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Previous owner valued his privacy. I'm honoring that tradition. She slid a mug toward him. Besides, people get curious about old ranches. Better to have things in writing. The contract's letterhead caught his attention. Not the usual local lawyer's work, but something more corporate, though the heading had been carefully removed. Jack signed anyway. Whatever Sarah's reasons, the money would save his farm. First, order of business, Sarah said, unrolling a set of blueprints across the table. These too seemed oddly professional, detailed architectural drawings with measurements precise to the millimeter. We start with the foundational repairs. No point fixing what's above if what's below isn't solid. Jack recognized wisdom when he heard it, even if it came wrapped in language more suited to a business meeting than a ranch house. Got a priority list? Several. She produced a tablet, fingers flying over its screen with practiced ease. Too practiced for someone who claimed to be returning to ranch life. I've mapped out critical paths, dependencies, material lead times. She caught herself, switched gears. Figure we should start with the barn support beams. They spent the morning assessing damage, Sarah matching his practical knowledge with surprising technical insight. She knew load-bearing calculations, stress tolerances, things learned in engineering schools rather than summer visits to an uncle's ranch. Around noon, her phone chirped, a different tone from her morning calls. Sarah stiffened almost imperceptibly. Excuse me, I need to take this. She walked toward the house, posture shifting from ranch hand to something else entirely. Jack couldn't help overhearing fragments. Q4 projections. Board meeting, transition plan. Not exactly typical ranch conversation. When she returned, there was tension around her eyes. Sorry about that. Where were we? Support beam calculations, Jack said, pretending not to notice how she'd slipped. A sleek laptop into her work bag. Though seems like you've got them well in hand. My uncle believed in understanding the science behind things. She hefted a beam with practiced ease, but her manicure, partially hidden under work gloves, caught the sunlight. Shall we? They worked through the afternoon, falling into a rhythm. Sarah knew her way around tools, but occasionally she'd pause. Like someone translating between languages in their head, she demonstrated knowledge of advanced construction techniques, then had to think about which end of a pry bar to use. As evening approached, Jack watched her make notes on her tablet, her fingers moving with the speed and precision of someone who spent more time with keyboards than hay bales. She caught him looking, quickly switched to writing in a battered notebook instead. Getting dark, she said, tucking the tablet away. We should call it a day. Guest house is stocked. Linens, groceries, everything you need. The guest house proved to be a well-maintained cottage, far more comfortable than its exterior suggested. The kitchen held new appliances, the bathroom gleamed, and the Wi-Fi, unusual for ranch property, was faster than anything Jack had seen. Later, unable to sleep, he stepped onto the porch. Light glowed from the main house's office window, Sarah's. Silhouette moved across it, pacing as she talked on the phone. Her gestures were different now, sharp, authoritative, commanding. A coyote called in the distance and she started, as if remembering where she was. Jack watched her silhouette transform. Again, shoulders relaxing into the posture of the ranch owner he'd worked with all day. Two versions of the same woman, like a coin spinning on its edge, never showing both sides at once. He headed back inside, questions tumbling through his mind. But questions didn't fix barns or mend fences. Tomorrow would bring enough work without adding mysteries to the load. Still, as he drifted off to sleep, he couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah's uncle wasn't the only one with secrets worth keeping. Rain drove them inside the main house, the sudden storm turning morning into twilight. Sarah disappeared upstairs to check on a leak, leaving Jack to wait in her office. Water drummed against the windows as he stood among the room's contradictions. Ranch. Ledgers beside cutting-edge laptops, mud-caked boots under a desk, worth more than his truck. The magazine caught his eye purely by chance, partially hidden under renovation plans, its glossy cover peeking out like a secret, demanding to be found. Forbes blazed across the top, and there she was, Sarah Matthews, CEO of Matthews Global Technologies. The photo showed her in a tailored suit, hair elegantly styled, standing before a wall of windows overlooking a city skyline. The quiet revolutionary, how Sarah Matthews built a $50 billion tech empire. His hands trembled as he slid the magazine free. The article's opening paragraph told the story: youngest female CEO of a Fortune 500 company, pioneering work in sustainable technology, notorious for avoiding publicity, known for disappearing periodically to recharge and innovate. The woman in the photos was undeniably Sarah, but transformed. No wonder she moved like someone translating between worlds. She was. Every corporate mannerism he'd noticed, every technical calculation too precise for ranch work, suddenly made sense. Jack heard footsteps on the stairs and carefully replaced the magazine. When Sarah returned, she was his ranch owner again. Work, gloves dangling from her back pocket. But now he saw the CEO beneath the disguise, in her posture, her analytical gaze, the way she processed information with algorithmic precision. "Leak's not too bad," she said, running a hand through damp hair, "though the roofing project just moved up our priority list." Jack nodded, struggling to reconcile the woman before him with the corporate titan from the magazine. "Want to review those lumber calculations while we wait out the rain?" She smiled, genuine warmth breaking through her careful facade. "Actually, I packed some lunch. Thought we could use a break." They ate sandwiches at the kitchen table, Sarah sharing stories about her uncle's ranch that now rang hollow in their careful vagueness. Jack played along, understanding for the first time why she needed someone who could keep secrets. "Must be hard," he said during a lull in conversation, "leaving a successful life behind to restore an old ranch." He watched her carefully, offering the subtle opening. Sarah's pause was microscopic, but he caught it. Sometimes the successful life isn't the meaningful one. Thunder rolled across the valley as they sat in comfortable silence. Jack wondered how many people knew where she really was, how many board members were searching for their CEO while she mended fences in Wyoming. "We should check the barn," Sarah said finally. "Make sure nothing's leaking on the new lumber." They ran through the rain together, boots splashing through puddles. Sarah laughed as they reached the barn door, rain dripping from her ponytail, and for a moment she wasn't a CEO or a ranch owner, just a woman finding joy in a summer storm. Jack helped her push the heavy door closed against the wind. She worked with the ease of someone who'd done it 100 times, but he now recognized the deliberate quality of her movements, every skill learned and practiced until it became natural. "Thanks," she said, wringing out her shirt, "for helping. Or me with all this. It means more than—" She stopped, that careful mask slipping back into place. "More than you know." Looking at her then, Jack made his decision. He'd keep her secret, Not because of the contract or the money, but because he recognized something in her eyes, the same hunger for honest work and simple purpose that had driven him all his life. Besides, he thought, as they began checking the roof for leaks, everyone deserved a chance to build something real, even billionaire CEOs trying to find their way home. The rain drummed on, washing the world clean, while inside the barn, a ranch hand and a secret CEO worked side by side, each pretending not to know what the other knew. The project timeline spread across the workshop table, covered in Sarah's precise handwriting. 2 weeks had passed since the storm, and already the ranch was showing signs of revival. New lumber gleamed against weathered wood, fresh paint brightened. Old walls and repaired fences stood straight against the Wyoming sky. "We're ahead of schedule," Sarah said, checking items off her list. She'd stopped wearing her smartwatch days ago, seemed more comfortable in her work clothes, as if settling into her skin. "The crew for the main house roof comes next week. But I thought maybe we could tackle the garden ourselves." Jack looked up from where he was repairing a tractor engine. He'd noticed how she said "we" more often now, how she lingered over their morning coffee planning sessions. Garden wasn't on the original timeline. No. She traced the outline of the old garden plot on a blueprint, but I remember helping. "My uncle planted tomatoes there. Seems wrong to fix everything else and leave it empty." These moments of genuine memory were rare, pieces of truth mixed carefully into her cover story. Jack had learned to recognize them by the way her voice softened, losing its practiced efficiency. "Soil's still good," he offered, "just needs working." Sarah's face lit up. "I ordered seeds, vegetables, wildflowers, maybe too much." She laughed, the sound carrying across the workshop. "Got excited at the garden store." They spent the afternoon turning earth that hadn't seen care in years. Sarah worked steadily beside him, no longer hesitating with tools. She'd learned the rhythm of physical labor, though her analytical mind still showed in the precise rows she measured. "You're good at this," Jack said as they broke for water. "The whole ranch thing. Wouldn't know you weren't born to it." She stiffened slightly, then relaxed when she caught his gentle smile. "Some things feel natural once you give them a chance." She wiped sweat from her forehead, leaving a smudge of dirt. "Even if they're not what others expect from you." Jack fought the urge to brush the dirt from her face. Instead, he pointed out the irrigation possibilities, drawing lines in the loose soil with a stick. Sarah followed his explanation intently, adding suggestions that merged agricultural wisdom with modern efficiency. "We could set up a smart watering system," she said, then caught herself, "or just use a sprinkler." "Nothing wrong with improving on tradition," Jack replied, thinking of the magazine article's praise for her innovative leadership. "Long as we remember what we're trying to grow." The sun was setting when they finished, painting the mountains. In shades of purple and gold, Sarah stood at the garden's edge, surveying their work with quiet satisfaction. In the fading light, she looked more like the woman from the magazine, confident, visionary, but somehow more real. "Thank you," she said suddenly, "for making this feel possible." "Making what feel possible?" She gestured at the ranch, the garden herself. "All of it. Being," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "being who I want to be, not who I'm supposed to be." Jack understood then that she wasn't just hiding here. She was finding herself, testing the boundaries between who she was and who she could become. Like the garden, she was putting down new roots in old soil. "Sometimes," he said, "who we're supposed to be and who we want to be are the same thing, just takes a while to see it." Their eyes met in the twilight, holding a moment too long. Sarah broke away first, gathering up tools with practiced efficiency. But something had shifted, like earth turning over to reveal richer soil beneath. Later, checking the barn one last time, Jack found Sarah's notebook fallen behind a workbench. It was open to a page filled with sketches. The garden, the ranch, future plans drawn with an architect's precision, but a dreamer's heart. In the margins, she'd written 2 words: "Finally home." He closed the notebook, returned it to her office desk. Outside, the first stars appeared above the mountains, bright against the darkening sky. From the main house came the smell of cooking, and light in the kitchen window, signs of life returning to Big Sky Ranch, signs of something else growing alongside the garden they'd planted. The weather-beaten photograph slipped from the barn beam as they rushed to secure the doors against the approaching storm. Sarah snatched it from the air, then froze at the image. A younger version of herself in a graduation gown, standing proud. Beside her uncle, her corporate mask dropped for just a moment, raw emotion flickering across her face. "Sarah!" Jack's voice cut through the rising wind. "Storm's coming in fast!" She tucked the photo into her pocket as thunder cracked overhead. The horizon had turned an ominous green-black, clouds boiling up like smoke from a wildfire. Wyoming. Storms could turn deadly in minutes, and this one had tornado written all over it. "Horses are secured," she called, helping Jack brace the doors. "Safe in the new stalls, but we need to—" A massive gust of wind drowned out his words, nearly yanking the door from their grasp. Together they threw their weight against it, shoulders touching as they fought the elements. The first hailstones hit like bullets on the metal roof. Sarah's hands were white-knuckled on the door handle, her breath coming in short gasps. Jack noticed she was shaking, not from exertion but fear. "Hey," he said softly, despite the storm's roar. "We've got this." She nodded, determination replacing fear. They managed to latch the doors just as the full force of the storm hit. The barn shuddered around them, new lumber creaking against old. "Main house is too far," Jack shouted over the wind. "We'll have to wait it out here." Sarah pulled out her phone, its screen casting blue light across her face. "No signal. Power's probably next." As if on cue, the barn lights flickered and died. Jack found the emergency lantern they'd stored for just such occasions, its warm glow creating a small circle of comfort in the vast darkness. Sarah was still staring at her phone, but not for a signal. The screen showed a weather radar map he recognized from his own farming days. "Rotation?" he asked, knowing what worried her. "Yeah." She zoomed in on their location. "Classic supercell. We could be here a while." Another crack of thunder made her jump, unconsciously stepping closer to him. They settled on hay bales, the lantern between them. Outside, the storm raged like a living thing, testing every repair they'd made. Sarah pulled out the photograph, studying it in the dim light. "Graduation day," she said quietly. "MIT. Uncle Mike was so proud, prouder than my parents even. They wanted me to go straight into the company, but he said I needed to learn the value of building something with my own hands first." Jack watched her trace the edges of the photo. "That why you're here? Learning to build?" "Partly." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "The company's all about sustainable technology, clean energy, improving lives. But sometimes in the corporate world, you forget what real life feels like, what real work means." A particularly strong gust rattled the barn doors, though maybe hiding from tornadoes wasn't part of the plan. "Plans have a way of changing," Jack said, thinking of his own farm, how disaster had led him here. "Sometimes for the better." The storm pressed them into silence, their shoulders almost touching. In the lantern light, Sarah looked softer, more vulnerable. A loose strand of hair fell across her face, and without thinking, Jack reached to brush it back. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the storm seemed to fade away. Sarah leaned slightly closer, her breath warm in the small space between them. Then a massive thunderclap shook the barn, breaking the moment. They jumped apart as the horses whinnied nervously in their stalls. "I should check on them," Sarah said, standing quickly. But her hand brushed Jack's shoulder as she passed, lingering just a moment too long to be accidental. He watched her move confidently through the darkness, soothing the horses with quiet words and gentle touches. The corporate CEO was gone, replaced by someone who belonged here, someone real and grounded and increasingly hard to resist. The storm raged on, but inside the barn, something else was brewing, something just as powerful, just as impossible. to control. And like the weather-beaten photograph now safely tucked in Sarah's pocket, some memories couldn't be hidden away forever. The local newspaper landed on their breakfast table like a bomb wrapped in newsprint. Mystery at Big Sky Ranch. Who's behind the $1 million restoration? The headline blared. Below it, a grainy photo showed Sarah in the distance, her back, thankfully turned to the camera as she worked on the garden. Jack watched her face as she read, seeing the CEO's mask slip into place. 3 months of work had transformed the ranch, but it had also drawn attention. Progress was visible from the road. New fencing, repaired buildings, fresh paint gleaming in the summer sun. People were starting to talk. Was bound to happen. He said gently, "Small towns run on curiosity." Sarah set the paper down with careful precision. "I knew we couldn't stay under the radar forever." She took a sip of coffee, but her hand trembled slightly. The garden show didn't help. She was right. Their restored heritage garden had won first prize at the county fair last week. Sarah had almost skipped the ceremony, but Jack had convinced her they'd draw more attention by not showing up. Now her photo, albeit from behind, was in the local paper's agricultural section too. Articles mostly speculation, Jack offered. No one's connected the dots. Yet. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages. "Board's getting antsy. Quarterly meetings coming up. They expect me in New York. You could go. I'll keep things running here." She looked up, something soft and uncertain in her eyes. "Would you? I mean, you'd stay. Got nowhere else I'd rather be." The words came out before he could filter them, heavy with meaning neither of them was ready to address. Sarah busied herself with her tablet, but a faint blush colored her cheeks. 2 days, maximum. I'll feed them some projections. Attend the essential meetings then. A truck rumbled up the driveway, interrupting her planning. Through the window they watched Earl Peterson from the feed store make his way to the door, newspaper in hand. "I'll handle it," Jack said, already standing. But Sarah touched his arm. "No, I need to start facing this. Just stay close." They met Earl on the porch, where he'd been a frequent visitor lately, always with questions thinly disguised as business. "Miss Sarah, brought your weekly order. Saw the article about your garden. Reminds me of one I read in Forbes few months back about urban agricultural initiatives. You ever follow business news?" Sarah's smile remained pleasant, but Jack saw her shoulders tense. "Can't say that I do, Earl. More interested in what's growing than what's showing, if you take my meaning." Course. Just that the CEO in that article, she had some similar ideas about sustainable farming. "And you know, now that I look at you, Earl," Jack cut in, "speaking of farming, how are those new seed varieties working out for you? Sarah here developed quite a system with companion planting. The deflection worked." Soon Earl was deep in discussion about crop rotation, his earlier suspicions temporarily forgotten. But as he drove away, Sarah's hands were shaking as she gripped her coffee mug. "They're getting closer," she whispered. "Maybe it's time to What, run?" Jack kept his voice gentle. "Sarah, look around. Look what you've built here." They stood on the porch, surveying their work. The garden burst with late summer abundance, heritage vegetables growing alongside flowers that attracted beneficial insects. The barn stood proud with its new roof, solar panels glinting in the morning sun. Her idea, merging tradition with innovation. Even the old windmill had been restored, now helping to power the property's modern additions. "I'm not running," she said finally. "I'm hiding. There's a difference. Are you?" Jack turned to face her. "Seems to me you're more yourself here than you ever were in that Forbes article." Sarah stared at him, startled. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. Then her phone buzzed, the board again, breaking the spell. "I have to take this," she said, but lingered a moment. "Jack, thank you for seeing me." He watched her walk away, phone to her ear, CEO persona sliding back into place. But now, he could see the cracks in the facade, the real Sarah shining through. The woman who got dirt under her manicured nails, who knew both Fortune 500 strategies and the best time to plant winter wheat, who was building something here that had nothing to do with corporate success and everything to do with finding home. Newspaper lay forgotten on the porch rail, its questions unanswered, but bigger questions were growing between them, taking root like the gardens they'd planted together, waiting for the right moment to bloom. The board meeting minutes fluttered from Sarah's laptop as Jack entered her office with their morning coffee. He caught a glimpse of urgent phrases: CEO's extended absence, leadership concerns, emergency meeting called. Before Sarah quickly gathered the papers, her movements sharp with tension. "Bad news?" he asked, setting her coffee beside her keyboard. Black, 2 sugars, the way she'd drunk it since her corporate days, though she'd recently started using the handmade mug from the local potter instead of her sleek travel thermos. "Boards, pushing for my return." Her voice carried the clipped tones of CEO Sarah, but her fingers worried the mug's rough ceramic edge. "They're not happy with remote management anymore. Shareholders are asking questions." Outside, the September sunrise painted the restored barn in shades of gold. Through the window they could see the heritage garden, bursting with harvest-ready vegetables, the fruit trees they'd planted beginning to take root. 3 months of shared labor had transformed more than just the ranch. "When do they want you back?" The question felt like gravel in his throat. "Yesterday." She attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I've bought some time with video conferences and strong quarterly reports, but..." She gestured at her laptop screen, where dozens of urgent emails demanded attention. "The real world is catching up." Jack settled into the worn leather chair. Across from her desk, the one piece of corporate furniture she'd brought with her, claiming it helped her think. "Didn't know this wasn't the real world." Sarah's fingers stilled on her keyboard. "You know what I mean." "Do I?" He kept his voice gentle. "Seems to me you've built something pretty real here. Those vegetables in the garden are real. The barn, roof we fixed is real. The way you've started humming while you work, that's real too." A flush colored her cheeks. "I don't hum. Every morning. Usually something country western. Definitely not CEO behavior." That earned him a genuine laugh, but it faded quickly as she glanced at her screen. "The company needs me, Jack. Thousands of jobs depend on my decisions. We're in the middle of a major green technology rollout that could help farmers across the country. And that's not real work?" He nodded toward the window. "What about the sustainable irrigation system you designed for the garden? The solar setup that's cut our power bills in half? The organic farming techniques you've been testing?" He leaned forward. "Sarah, you're not just playing ranch owner here. You're doing the same work you've always done, making things better, helping things grow, just on a scale you can touch with your own hands." She stared at him for a long moment, corporate mask slipping. "When did you figure out who I was?" "About 2 months ago. Magazine under some papers. Doesn't change anything, doesn't it?" She stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "I'm living a double life, Jack, lying to everyone. The board thinks I'm working remotely from a private retreat. The town thinks I'm just someone's niece trying to restore a family property. Even you..." She stopped, hands gripping the windowsill. "I haven't been honest with anyone." Jack joined her at the window, careful to maintain the professional distance they'd silently agreed upon, even as something deeper pulled them closer. "You've been honest in all the ways that matter. The work you do, the care you take, the dreams you have for this place, that's all real. The rest is just details." Sarah turned to face him, morning light catching the silver threads in her dark hair, earned over the summer working under the Wyoming sun. "The board's called an emergency meeting, in person, next week in New York." Her voice cracked slightly. "They're voting on my position." The words hung between them, heavy as storm clouds. Jack fought the urge to reach for her, to bridge the careful gap they'd maintained. "So what are you going to do?" She squared her shoulders, CEO stance warring with the ranch owner she'd become. "I don't know. For the first time in my career, I don't have a strategic plan. All I know is..." She gestured to the ranch, the garden, the life they'd built. "This feels more like me than any boardroom ever has." "Then maybe that's your answer." Their eyes met, holding secrets and possibilities neither dared voice. Outside, a meadowlark called to the morning sun, while inside, two worlds continued their slow collision, spinning toward a future neither of them could predict. Two calendars lay open on Sarah's desk, a perfect metaphor for her divided life. The sleek digital display of her corporate schedule blinked with urgent reminders. Board meeting, NYC, shareholder presentation, executive committee review. Beside it, a dog-eared ranch calendar marked with harvest dates, winter preparation tasks, and maintenance schedules written in her increasingly confident farmhand. "You missed a spot," Jack said from the doorway, nodding at the ranch calendar. "Forgot to mark the fall festival you promised to help organize." Sarah looked up, shadows under her eyes, betraying another night of minimal sleep. "I can't think about festivals right now." "The board meeting?" She trailed off, gesturing at the stack of financial reports on her desk. "Ranch doesn't stop growing just because Wall Street's calling." He set a fresh cup of coffee beside her, noticed how her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for it. "When's your flight?" "Tomorrow morning." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Jack, I need to ask you something important. The ranch will be fine while you're gone. It's not that." She stood, moving to the window where the first hints of fall painted the distant mountains. "I need you to come with me." The request hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Jack waited, letting her find the words. "The board needs to understand what we're doing here. Not just the restoration, but the sustainable agriculture programs, the renewable energy integration, the community involvement. You can explain it better than anyone. Show them this isn't just me running away. It's me finding a better way to fulfill our company's mission." "Sarah," he stepped closer, careful to maintain the professional distance that grew thinner every day. "I'm just a farmer. What could I say to a room full of executives?" She turned, eyes bright with something that might have been tears or determination. "You're not just anything. You understand both worlds, the practical and the possible. You see the bigger picture without losing sight of what matters on the ground." Her voice softened. "You see me." The morning sun caught her face, highlighting the subtle changes of the past months. Skin tanned from outdoor work, laugh lines deeper, a new confidence in her stance that had nothing to do with corporate power. "They won't listen to someone like me," he said gently. "They'll listen to results." She grabbed a folder from her desk. "The sustainable farming techniques we've developed here, they could revolutionize small-scale agriculture. The solar integration system? It's more efficient than anything on the market. We're not just restoring a ranch, Jack. We're building a model for the future." Her passion was contagious, reminding him of late-night conversations over cooling coffee, planning sessions that turned philosophical, moments when the CEO and the rancher merged into something entirely new. "And if they still vote against you?" Sarah's hand stilled on the folder. "Then at least I'll know I fought for something real." She met his eyes. Unless I'm wrong about all of this. About the ranch, about what we've built here, about..." She stopped abruptly. Jack closed the distance between them, professional boundaries finally crumbling. "You're not wrong." The folder slipped from her fingers as he drew her into a kiss that had been building for months, through summer storms and harvest moons, through shared work and secret glances. Sarah melted into him, her corporate armor falling away completely. When they finally parted, she rested her forehead against his chest. "I can't lose this," she whispered. "Any of it. Then we'll fight for it." He held her close, feeling her tension ease slightly. Together. She nodded against his shirt, then straightened, CEO strength blending with ranch owner resilience. "We leave at dawn. Pack a suit, something that says Innovative Agricultural Consultant." Jack smiled, recognizing her strategic mind at work. "Yes, ma'am." As he turned to leave, Sarah called after him. "Jack, thank you for seeing both sides of me, for making me feel whole." He looked back at her, standing between her two calendars, no longer divided, but synthesized into something stronger. Always. Outside, the ranch stretched toward the mountains, proof that different worlds could not only coexist but flourish. Together. Tomorrow they'd face New York's steel canyons, but tonight they had Wyoming's endless sky and the certainty that some things, like love and land and purpose, transcended any boundary they might face. The press release draft glowed accusingly on Sarah's tablet. Matthews Global Technologies confirms CEO's secret Wyoming ranch project. Someone had leaked their travel plans to the business media. Now, on the eve of their New York trip, Sarah's carefully constructed worlds were colliding faster than she could control. Sources close to the board suggest CEO Sarah Matthews has been personally testing the company's agricultural initiatives at a remote Wyoming location. She read aloud, her voice tight. While some shareholders praise this hands-on approach, others question the extended absence from corporate headquarters. Jack stood at the window of her office, watching storm clouds gather over the mountains. The weather matched their mood. Dark, volatile, full of potential energy. Could be worse, he offered. At least they're spinning it as research rather than rebellion. For now, Sarah set the tablet down with careful precision. But once this breaks, every reporter in the region will... Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. It's Earl from the feed store. Third time he's called since the story hit the wire. The local paper would pick up the story by morning. Their small town's mystery ranch owner would be front-page news, alongside records of every interaction, every purchase, every community event she'd attended. Her deception, however well-intentioned, would become public fodder. We could still make the early flight, Jack said quietly. Face the board before this gets bigger. Sarah's laugh held no humor. Too late for that. She turned her tablet to show him the trending business headlines. Tech CEO's rural experiment. Innovation or abdication. The story was spreading like wildfire through financial circles. The sound of tires on gravel made them both turn. Through the window, they watched a local news van pull up to the ranch gate. Behind it, 2 more vehicles kicked up dust on the approach road. And so it begins, Sarah murmured. She squared her shoulders, CEO stance warring with ranch owner authenticity. We should, Jack corrected firmly. Whatever you're facing, you're not facing it alone. Their eyes met, holding the weight of everything that had changed. Between them since that first kiss, Sarah's expression softened, vulnerability showing through her professional mask. I've spent my whole career controlling narratives, she said. Building the right image, saying the right things, being who everyone needed me to be. But here, with you, working this land, she gestured to the ranch spreading out below them, green and vital in the gathering stormlight. For the first in time, I'm just being. Jack moved to her side, close enough to feel the tension radiating from her shoulders. Then be that. Be the woman who knows both boardrooms and barn raising. Who can read market trends and morning frost? Who's strong enough to run a global company, but brave enough to start over? More vehicles appeared on the horizon. Sarah's phone buzzed continuously now. Board members, reporters, local friends putting pieces together. The storm of consequences was breaking around them. She took a deep breath, then reached for Jack's hand, the calluses on both their palms. Matched now, earned through shared labor and shared purpose. Think they're ready for a CEO in work boots? Only one way to find out. Together, they walked onto the porch just as the first raindrops fell. Reporters scrambled from their vehicles, cameras raising like weapons. Lightning flickered in the distance, thunder rolling across the valley they'd worked so hard to bring. Back to life, Miss Matthews. Is it true you've been hiding here? What does this mean for company leadership? Are you stepping down from Matthews Global? The questions pelted like hail, but Sarah stood steady. Jack felt her grip tighten on his hand, drawing strength from the connection. I haven't been hiding, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the yard. I've been building something that could change how we think about sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, and corporate responsibility. She paused, surveying the crowd, And I'd be happy to show you exactly what that looks like. The rain fell harder as Sarah led the press tour, moving confidently between their restored buildings and thriving gardens. She spoke the language of innovation and investment, but her hands told stories of practical work, pointing out details only someone who'd done the labor would know. Jack watched her transform the narrative in real time, turning a potential scandal into a vision of corporate leadership for a new era. The woman he'd fallen in love with wasn't choosing between her two worlds anymore. She was creating something entirely new, where both could flourish together. The storm broke over them, but they barely noticed. They had weathered worse together, and would weather more. Some foundations, once built, could withstand any pressure. The business proposal sat open on the gleaming boardroom table, its bold heading reading, Future Growth Initiative, Agricultural Innovation Centers. Sarah stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan's skyline a stark contrast to the Wyoming mountains she'd left behind. Her reflection showed someone caught between worlds, designer suit and ranch-tanned skin, corporate polish and practical strength. "And they're ready for you," Jack said from the doorway. He looked surprisingly natural in his tailored suit, though she caught him tugging at the collar. Yesterday's media storm had followed them to New York, reporters camping in the lobby of Matthews, Global Technologies headquarters. Strange being back. Sarah smoothed her jacket, a gesture more habit than necessity. "Everything looks smaller somehow. Funny what a few months of big sky will do to your perspective." He moved to her side, their shoulders barely touching. Even here, surrounded by corporate sterility, the electricity between them remained. Undimmed, a knock at the door announced her assistant, the same one who'd been covering for her absences these past months. "Board's assembled, Miss Matthews, and there's quite a crowd. Word got out about the farmer who transformed the CEO." Jack grimaced. "Not exactly the headline we were going for." "No," Sarah smiled, gathering her materials, "but maybe exactly the story we need to tell." The boardroom fell silent as they entered. 12 pairs of eyes tracked their movement, some curious, some hostile, all calculating. Sarah took her place at the head of the table, Jack settling into the chair beside her, a deliberate break from traditional hierarchy. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying the authority of both boardroom and barnyard, "you've all seen the headlines. Yes, I've spent the past 6 months working a ranch in Wyoming. Yes, I stepped back from daily operations here. And yes," she met each gaze in turn, "it was the best decision I could have made for this company's future." Murmurs rippled around the table. Sarah opened her presentation, projecting images of Big Sky Ranch onto the wall screen. "What you're looking at isn't just a restored ranch. It's a working prototype for agricultural innovation. The sustainable farming techniques we've developed there have increased yield by 40% while reducing water usage by a third. Our solar integration system has cut power costs by 60%. The community engagement program has created partnerships with local farmers, universities, and agricultural technology firms." She advanced through slides showing detailed data, practical applications, market projections. But the real breakthrough isn't in the numbers, it's in the integration. By working the land ourselves, by facing the daily challenges of modern farming. Firsthand, we've developed solutions that actually work in the real world. Jack stood, his quiet confidence filling the room. "Your CEO didn't run away to play farmer," he said, his voice carrying the weight of honest work and hard-earned wisdom. "She did what every good leader should do. She got her hands dirty understanding the problems her company claims to solve." Sarah's heart swelled at his defense, but she kept her professional composure. "The proposal before you outlines our vision for agricultural innovation centers across the country. Working ranches that double as research and development facilities, places where corporate innovation meets practical application, where technology meets tradition." She clicked to the financial projections. Conservative estimates show a 20% return on investment within 3 years. But the real value is in positioning Matthews Global Technologies as a leader in sustainable agricultural solutions. We're not just selling technology anymore. We're growing the future. The board chairman leaned forward, studying the numbers. And your role in all this? I'll split my time between headquarters and the field sites. 3 weeks here, 1 week on site, regular video conferences, quarterly reviews, full transparency. Sarah's gaze swept the room. You with Mr. Morgan as our Chief Agricultural Innovation Officer, overseeing the practical implementation of our technologies. Jack's head snapped up. They hadn't discussed this part, but Sarah pressed on, everything falling into place like seeds, finding fertile soil. This isn't about choosing between two worlds, she continued. It's about bringing them together, creating something stronger, more sustainable, more real than either could be alone. Her eyes met Jack's, volumes passing in that glance. Sometimes the best growth happens when you're willing to plant something new. Silence filled the boardroom. The chairman studied them both, his expression unreadable. You've changed, Sarah. Yes, she agreed simply. For the better. He nodded slowly, then looked at his fellow board members. I move we put it to a vote. All in favor of implementing Ms. Matthews' Agricultural Innovation Center proposal with the specified leadership structure. Hands raised around the table. Some quickly, some reluctantly, but one by one, until only one board member held out. He fixed Sarah with a hard stare. You really think you can run a global tech company while playing in the dirt? Sarah smiled, every inch the CEO, even as her ranch-hardened hands clasped the proposal. No, I think I can run it better because I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. Any other questions? The last hand raised. Outside the window, sunset painted Manhattan's glass towers in shades of gold that reminded her of Wyoming wheat fields. Different worlds, different kinds of beauty, but no longer in conflict. She looked at Jack, saw their shared future taking root, and knew that sometimes the best harvests come from the most unexpected plantings. The petitions spread across the diner's counter, pages of signatures representing nearly every family in the county. Support for Big Sky Ranch Agricultural Innovation Center, read the heading, followed by hundreds of names written in the varied hands of farmers, teachers, store owners, and ranch hands. Earl from the feed store pushed a fresh cup of coffee toward Sarah, his earlier suspicions about her identity replaced with fierce local pride. Whole town's behind you. Can't remember the last time folks agreed on anything like this. Sarah ran her fingers over the signatures, recognizing names from months of community interactions. The potter who'd made her favorite coffee mug, the retired teacher who'd advised them on the heritage garden, the local kids who'd helped with the harvest. We never asked for this, she said softly, overwhelmed by the show of support. Didn't have to. Earl gestured at the morning crowd filling Miller's diner. Word got out about your board meeting in New York. Town figured you might need some backup. Showing them city folks that we believe in what you're building here. Jack entered the diner, bringing with him the crisp October air and the scent of morning farm work. The locals greeted him with knowing smiles and subtle nods, the man who'd helped their mysterious CEO find her true path. Mail truck just dropped. Off another box of letters, he reported, sliding onto the stool beside Sarah. University Agricultural Department wants to partner on research. 3 more small farms asking to be pilot sites for the solar irrigation system, and he pulled out a creased envelope. Your parents. Sarah tensed slightly, but wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, the one with the tiny imperfection that made it fit her grip perfectly. They're coming to visit, want to see this new life I'm building. She smiled wryly. Dad said he hasn't seen me this happy since I used to help him in his workshop as a kid. Speaking of building, Mary Miller emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. We've been talking, some of us local business owners. Way we see it, this innovation center of yours is going to need more than just farm space. You'll be bringing in researchers, students, farmers looking to learn. They'll need places to stay, places to eat. Mary's expanding the diner, Earl cut in. Tom's renovating the old hotel downtown. Sarah, you're not just reviving your ranch, you're helping revive the whole town. The diner's bell chimed as more morning regulars arrived. Each one stopped to add their signature to the petition, sharing words of support or suggestions for the project. Sarah watched them with growing amazement, remembering how carefully she'd once hidden from these same people. "Community's a funny thing," Jack said quietly, just for her. "You spend months trying to avoid letting them know who you are. Then discover they knew who you were becoming all along." Sarah leaned against him slightly, professional boundaries forgotten in the warmth of local acceptance. "And who am I becoming?" "Someone real," he replied. "Someone who builds bridges instead of walls. Between city and country, technology and tradition, past and future." Mary returned with a fresh pot of coffee and her famous cinnamon rolls. "Found your old recipe cards in the ranch kitchen," she said, serving them each a roll. "Your uncle used to say you'd added the cinnamon to his mama's recipe. Said it was the perfect mix of respecting tradition and trying something new." Sarah blinked back sudden tears. He would have loved this. Seeing the ranch become something more than just a piece of history, something living and growing. "He'd have loved seeing you become something more too," Jack added softly. The morning sun streamed through the diner's windows, catching the golden leaves of Main Street's maple trees. Sarah watched the town wake up around them. Feed store opening, its doors, school bus making its rounds, farmers heading to their fields, all these lives intertwining with hers, creating something stronger than any corporate strategy could design. Her phone buzzed with a message from the board. Final approval for the first phase of funding. But for once, she didn't feel pulled between worlds. The corporate CEO and the ranch owner had finally found their balance, each making the other stronger. "We should head back," she said eventually. "Conference call with the development team. At 10, they're excited about integrating some of the local farming techniques into the tech rollout." Jack gathered the petition carefully. "And the afternoon?" "All yours." She smiled. "Those fence posts won't set themselves." They stepped out into the morning light, accepting waves and well-wishes from passing neighbors. The petition rode in Jack's truck beside Sarah's laptop, two worlds sharing space as naturally as breathing. Above them, a flock of geese headed south, their V formation a reminder that sometimes the best path forward wasn't a straight line, but a pattern of cooperation, each part supporting the whole. Sarah watched them until they disappeared over the horizon, then turned toward home, both her homes, ready to write the next chapter of their expanding story. The property deed lay between them on the ranch house kitchen table, its official seal catching the late November sunlight. Two parcels of land, once separate, now joined under a single title, Big Sky Ranch and the Morgan family farm, united, on paper as their lives had united in purpose. "Sign here," the county clerk said, pointing to the line below where Sarah had already written her name. Jack's hand hesitated over the document, weathered fingers gripping the pen. "Having second thoughts?" Sarah asked quietly, understanding the weight of the moment. The Morgan farm had been in his family for 3 generations. Now it would become part of something larger, just as he had. "No," he said firmly, scrawling his signature, "just making sure this is real." The clerk stamped the final page, making it official. "Congratulations. The properties are now legally consolidated under the Agricultural Innovation Center Trust." She gathered her papers, sensing the emotion in the room. "I'll see myself out." When the door closed behind her, Sarah reached for Jack's hand. "Your father would be proud. The land's still in the family. It's just growing into something bigger." Jack stood, drawing her to the window. Outside, the first snow dusted the combined properties, white powder softening the boundaries between old fence lines. The innovative greenhouse they'd designed together gleamed in the distance, its solar panels catching the winter light. Inside, their experimental winter crops thrived, proving that with the right blend of tradition and technology, anything was possible. "Remember the first day I worked here?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Thought I was just taking a job to save my farm. Had no idea I was really saving myself." Sarah leaned back against him, their reflection ghosting in the window glass. The CEO and the farmer, no longer pretending to be anything but themselves. Had no idea I was saving myself either. All those years in boardrooms thinking success meant bigger profits, larger markets, and now you're revolutionizing agricultural technology by actually working the land. He chuckled, while wearing designer boots, I might add. "Hey, these boots are practical," she nudged him playfully. "Besides, the board loves our hands-on approach. Share prices are up 30% since we announced the Innovation Center initiative, and the summer intern program is already oversubscribed." Jack added, "Who knew so many business students wanted to learn actual farming?" "They want what we've found," Sarah said thoughtfully. "A way to make their work mean something tangible, to see the results of their decisions growing in real soil." The sound of vehicles on the gravel drive drew their attention. Through the window, they watched the first group of contractors arrive, the renovation team that would convert the old Morgan farmhouse into student housing. The architectural plans, spread out on Jack's grandfather's desk just yesterday, preserved the building's historic character while adding modern amenities. "Phase 1 begins," Sarah murmured. "You sure you're ready for all this? Students, researchers, technology teams?" "Long as I still get my morning coffee with the CEO," he said, kissing her temple. "Speaking of which," he reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "Been carrying this around, waiting for the right moment. Figure if we're joining the properties." Sarah's breath caught as he opened the box. The ring was perfect, a simple Montana sapphire set in hand-worked silver, as much artisan craft as fine jewelry. Like them, it bridged two worlds. "Marry me?" he asked simply. "Help me build something even bigger than either of us imagined." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded. "Yes, always yes." The ring slid onto her finger as naturally as if it had always belonged there. Outside, the contractors began unloading equipment, the future arriving with each passing moment. But here in the kitchen, where they'd shared their first coffee, first plans, first dreams, time stood still. "We should go greet the crew," Sarah said eventually, practical even in emotion. "The Innovation Center's timeline can wait 5 more minutes," Jack finished, drawing her close. "Some moments deserve savoring." They stood together at the window, watching snow fall on their expanded kingdom. The merged properties stretched toward the horizon, past the new greenhouse, past the heritage gardens, past the restored barn where they'd weathered their first storm. Every acre held memories of their journey. Corporate CEO learning to trust. The land, lonely farmer learning to trust love. Two people discovering that the biggest dreams grow best in shared soil. The deed on the table behind them made it official, but they'd known the truth for months. Some boundaries were meant to be erased, some divisions meant to be healed. And sometimes the greatest innovation wasn't in technology or technique, but in the courage to plant something new and the patience to watch it grow. Jack squeezed her hand, feeling the ring press between their palms. "Ready to build our next chapter?" Sarah smiled, CEO confidence and ranch wisdom blending perfectly in her voice. "With you, I'm ready for anything." The blueprint for their future covered the ranch house's new conference table, its crisp blue lines mapping out the next phase of their vision. 1 year had transformed Big Sky Ranch from a restoration project into a thriving agricultural innovation center, but Sarah and Jack's dreams had only grown larger. "The satellite campuses are confirmed," Sarah said, marking locations on the map. She'd just returned from a board meeting in New York, her power suit hanging beside Jack's work jacket. In their shared closet, 5 more ranches across the country, each one combining practical farming with technological innovation. "And each one staffed by people who know both sides of the story," Jack added, studying the plans. He'd spent the past month interviewing potential site managers, former executives who wanted to work the land, experienced farmers ready to embrace new technology. Like us. Sarah smiled, remembering how far they'd come. The original Big Sky Ranch had bloomed beyond their wildest dreams. The heritage gardens now supplied fresh produce to local schools. The experimental greenhouse hosted international agriculture students. Even the barn had evolved, its restored frame housing a state-of-the-art monitoring system that tracked crop health across the property. Latest numbers just came in, she said, pulling up data on her tablet. Our sustainable farming methods have been adopted by over 300 small farms nationwide. Water usage down 40%, crop yields up by a third. The board's calling it a revolution in agricultural technology, and all because a CEO decided to play farmer, Jack teased, drawing her into his arms. Pretty sure it was because a farmer decided to trust a CEO, she countered, settling against him. Through the window, they could see students crossing the grounds, future agricultural scientists learning to combine soil science with software, traditional wisdom with technological innovation. The sound of laughter drew their attention to the garden, where a tour group followed Mary Miller along the paths. The diner owner had become their unofficial community liaison, sharing the story of Big Sky Ranch's transformation with visitors from around the world. Remember when we thought we had to choose, Sarah asked softly, between corporate success and rural life, between tradition and innovation, between who we were and who we wanted to be? Jack added, his hand finding hers, wedding rings clicking softly together. Their marriage 3 months ago had been a perfect blend of both worlds, held in the restored barn, catered by local restaurants, attended by board members and farmers alike. Sarah had worn a designer dress with her work boots. Jack had dressed in a bespoke suit, but kept his grandfather's pocket watch. Like everything in their shared life, it bridged the gap between past and future. A knock at the door interrupted their reflection. Tom from the hotel stood there, practically bouncing with excitement. That sustainability magazine is here, the one doing the cover story, and you'll never guess who's with them. Sarah and Jack exchanged knowing looks. They'd kept this particular surprise under wraps for weeks. Send them in, Sarah called, straightening her casual blazer, her new uniform that split the difference. Between CEO and ranch owner, the magazine crew entered, led by a familiar face that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. Uncle Mike, the man who'd started it all, who'd taught her to love the ranch during childhood summers, stepped forward, arms wide, surprised. When the magazine contacted me about doing a piece on the ranch's history, wild horses couldn't have kept me away. But we thought you were in Europe, Sarah managed, hugging him tight. The lawyer said, "Oh, I was," he chuckled, "studying sustainable farming practices in the Alps. Came back to find you'd turned my little ranch into exactly what I'd always dreamed it could be." He turned to Jack, extending his hand. "And you must be the farmer who helped my niece find her way home." "More like we found our way together," Jack replied, shaking the offered hand. Uncle Mike surveyed the blueprint on the table, nodding appreciatively. Agricultural innovation centers across the country, solar-powered greenhouses, community education programs. His eyes twinkled. A far cry from the little girl who used to help me mend fences. "I still mend fences," Sarah said, "just different kinds now." The magazine crew set up their equipment as Uncle Mike toured the property, his proud tears matching Sarah's when he saw his mother's heritage roses blooming beside the high-tech greenhouse. The past and future, growing together in carefully tended soil. Later, after the interviews and photos, Sarah and Jack stood on their porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. The blueprint for their future waited inside, but this moment belonged to the present. "Think we'll ever stop expanding?" Jack asked, his arm around her shoulders. "Ever just say, 'This is enough'?" Sarah considered the question, watching students leave the evening greenhouse session. Local farmers arrive for their technology training, board members' cars pulling up for tomorrow's strategy meeting. "No," she said finally, because it's not about expanding anymore. It's about growing, and the best things never stop growing. They just put down deeper roots. Jack smiled, understanding completely. Like the land they cultivated, like the love they shared, like the bridge they'd built between two worlds, some things were meant to keep evolving, keep reaching, keep believing in the possibility of more. The blueprint inside mapped their future, but their hearts had drawn these plans long ago. In the moments between corporate calls and cattle counts, between board meetings and barn raisings, between who they were and who they'd become, together. The development plans for their new training center lay forgotten on the desk as Sarah stared at the small ultrasound image in her hands. Their worlds were about to expand again, in the most profound way possible. Twins, she whispered, still, processing the morning's doctor's appointment. Jack, we're having twins. He stood behind her chair, hands gentle on her shoulders, his own amazement reflected in the office window. Outside, winter snow blanketed the Innovation Center's grounds, where students bustled between classes and researchers tended the experimental. Greenhouse crops, 2 Morgan Matthews farmers in training, he said, voice thick with emotion. Or CEOs, or both. Sarah laughed, touching her still flat stomach. Already overachieving. Must be the corporate genetics. More likely the farming ones, always planning for abundance. Jack knelt beside her chair, taking her hand. You okay? With everything this means? She knew what he was asking. They'd built something remarkable here, balancing her role as CEO with their hands-on ranch work, corporate responsibilities with agricultural innovation. Adding twins to the equation would challenge that carefully constructed harmony. I'm more than okay, she said, squeezing his hand. Remember what you told me that first summer, about how the best growth happens when you're willing to plant something. New? A knock at the door interrupted them. Mary from the diner entered, carrying a basket of her famous cinnamon rolls. She took one look at their faces and broke into a knowing smile. So the secret's out? She asked, setting down the basket. Suspected as much when you switched to herbal tea last week. Town's been taking bets on when you'd announce it. Sarah shook her head, amused but not surprised. Their community had become family over the past year, sharing in every milestone. We just found out it's twins, haven't even told the board yet. Twins? Mary clapped her hands in delight. Lord knows we could use some little ones around here, all these serious students. And scientists need reminding that life's about more than data and crops. As if to prove her point, a group of corporate executives passed by the window, deep in discussion with local farmers about sustainable irrigation techniques. The Innovation Center had become exactly what they'd envisioned, a place where different worlds met and learned from each other. Speaking of data, Jack said, reaching for the development plans, these might need some revising now. Maybe add a daycare center to the new training facility. Sarah studied the blueprints with fresh eyes. The planned expansion would already include classrooms, research labs, and hands-on training areas. Adding a space for children seemed perfect. A reminder that innovation wasn't just about technology, but about nurturing future generations. We could set up a children's garden, she mused, teaching sustainability from the ground up. My uncle always said the best lessons start in the soil. And the board? Jack asked gently. How do you think they'll take the news? Sarah stood, moving to the window. Below, the ranch stretched out in winter stillness, the restored barn, the thriving greenhouses, the heritage gardens sleeping under snow. Every inch represented the success of their integrated vision. The board trusts us now, she said confidently. Our approach has proven itself. Stock prices are at record highs, our sustainable agriculture programs are being adopted worldwide, and we're training the next generation of agricultural innovators. She turned back to Jack, smiling. Besides, what better way to prove our model's sustainability than by raising our children in it? Mary, who'd been quietly arranging her cinnamon rolls, spoke up. Babies have a way of making people see what really matters. All these fancy plans and projects, they're wonderful, but family's what makes it mean something. Sarah's hand found her stomach again, imagining the new life growing there, like the seeds they planted each spring, like the programs they'd developed, like the love they'd found, something precious taking root and flourishing. "We'll need help," she admitted, "running everything, keeping it all growing." "You've got an entire town ready to pitch in," Mary assured her. "Plus all these smart young people you've brought here. It takes a community to raise a child, or two." Jack wrapped his arms around Sarah from behind, both of them watching the afternoon light paint long shadows across their snow-covered kingdom. "Remember when you were hiding who you were?" he murmured. "Now look at us, building a legacy that's bigger than corporate success or family farming, something that combines the best of both." Sarah leaned back against him, feeling the strength of their partnership. They'd faced every challenge together, found ways to blend seemingly opposite worlds. This new adventure would be no different. "The twins will have the best of everything," she said softly. "Business sense and practical wisdom, corporate strategy and farm common sense. They'll know both boardrooms and barn raising. They'll know love," Jack added simply. "The rest will follow." Outside, the sun broke through winter clouds, setting the snow-covered fields sparkling like diamonds. Sarah thought of the seeds sleeping beneath that blanket of white, waiting for spring, for the chance to grow into something new and wonderful, just like the precious seeds taking root within her, proving that the most important mergers aren't written in contracts or carved in stone, but grown in love and cultivated with care. The ranch development plan rested on the doctor's office table alongside Sarah's latest ultrasound pictures. Two worlds continuing to intertwine in unexpected ways. The twins, a boy and a girl, pressed close together in the grainy image, already sharing space just as their parents shared dreams. "Everything looks perfect," Dr. Anderson said, her smile warming her professional tone. "Though I'm not surprised, given how well you've been taking care of yourself. Most CEOs don't manage to reduce stress during pregnancy. Most CEOs don't have a ranch to escape to," Sarah replied, squeezing Jack's hand. At 6 months pregnant, she'd found a new rhythm, balancing board meetings with morning walks through the heritage gardens, corporate calls with quiet moments in the greenhouse. "Or a whole community watching out for them," Jack added, gathering their papers as they prepared to leave. "Speaking of which, we're late for the town hall meeting." The Innovation Center's success had sparked a revival in their small town. Today's meeting would discuss plans for expanding the local school's agricultural science program, funded by Matthews Global Technologies Educational Initiative. Their twins would grow up in a community that bridged rural wisdom and technological innovation, just like their parents. They drove through town in Jack's truck, now equipped with both ranch tools and corporate laptops. Main Street had transformed over the past year. The renovated hotel hosting agricultural researchers, new restaurants serving farm-to-table meals, the community center offering classes in both traditional farming and modern agri-tech. "Remember, when I was trying to hide from all this?" Sarah mused, watching familiar faces wave as they passed. "Now look at us, planning the future of the town, along with our families." "Speaking of planning," Jack said, pulling into the community center's parking lot, "Uncle Mike called this morning, says the European Sustainable Farming Cooperatives are interested in our model. They want to establish sister sites across the EU. Sarah rubbed her growing belly thoughtfully. "Think we can manage international expansion with 2 newborns?" "We can manage anything together," he replied with quiet confidence. "Besides, we've built something bigger than just us now. The next generation of agricultural innovators we've trained, they're ready to spread their wings." The community center buzzed with energy. Farmers in work boots mingling with corporate representatives, students presenting research findings, local business owners discussing economic opportunities. Sarah and Jack made their way to the front, greeting friends and colleagues who had become family. Mary intercepted them with herbal tea for Sarah and coffee for Jack. twins behaving themselves?" she asked, eyeing Sarah's bump with grandmotherly affection. "Active as spring colts," Sarah laughed, "especially during board meetings." "Good," Mary nodded approvingly. "Already keeping their mama balanced between worlds." The meeting began, but Sarah found herself reflecting on Mary's words. Balance had once seemed impossible. CEO or ranch owner, corporate success or rural simplicity, ambition or authenticity. Now she understood that the real innovation wasn't in choosing between worlds, but in growing something new from both. Jack presented the educational initiative, his natural authority enhanced by the respect he'd earned in both boardrooms and barnyards. Sarah watched him with pride, remembering the lonely farmer who'd arrived at her gate, seeking last-chance employment. They'd saved each other, really, and in doing so, had created something that was saving others. The Matthews Morgan Agricultural Innovation Scholarship, he announced, surprising her with the name, will provide full funding for local students pursuing degrees in sustainable agriculture and agricultural technology. Because the future of farming needs both soil and science, tradition and innovation. Applause filled the room, but Sarah barely heard it. Her hands cradled their growing twins as tears blurred her vision. Jack met her eyes across the podium, love and understanding flowing between them as naturally as water through their irrigation systems. Later, walking the quiet evening paths of their expanded ranch, they stopped at the original garden where their story had begun. New growth pushed through rich soil, promising another abundant season. "I've been thinking," Sarah said, watching the sunset paint their world in shades of possibility, "about names for the twins." Jack waited, knowing her analytical mind would have researched every angle. "Morgan for our son," she continued, "after your family, this land, everything we've built here. And Rose for our daughter, after the heritage roses my uncle saved, that taught me some things are worth preserving, while we grow toward the future." "Perfect," Jack murmured, holding her close as darkness settled over their kingdom, like everything else that's grown from this soil. Around them, the Innovation Center hummed with evening activity, students in the research labs, farmers in the training facilities, the quiet whir of sustainable technology monitoring crops through the night. Their twins kicked energetically, already part of this living, growing world. The ranch development plan in Sarah's office would guide their expansion across continents, but the real future stirred beneath her heart. 2 new lives who would inherit. Not just a prosperous company or a thriving ranch, but a vision of how different worlds could nurture each other, growing stronger together than they ever could alone. The wedding invitation from 5 years ago sat framed in Sarah's office, beside a more recent photograph. Their twins, Morgan and Rose, now 4 years old, helping collect data from the Heritage Gardens soil sensors. The invitation's simple design had bridged their 2 worlds, corporate elegance meets ranch authenticity, just as their children now naturally straddled the divide between boardroom and barnyard. "Mama!" Rose's voice carried through the open window. "The tomato plants are sending data." Sarah watched her daughter navigate the tablet with the same confidence she showed handling garden tools. Beside her, Morgan carefully recorded measurements in his grandfather's old leather notebook, adding his own careful drawings of the plants. Jack appeared in the doorway, his familiar work boots now accompanied by the smart watch that kept him connected to their expanding network of innovation centers. "Board meeting in 10 minutes. They're eager to hear about the European expansion. And how are our sister sites doing?" Sarah asked, gathering her materials. "Thriving. Uncle Mike says the Alpine Center's already revolutionizing high altitude farming techniques. But you know what he's really proud of?" Jack smiled, nodding toward their children, watching the next generation grow up understanding both sides of the story. Through the window, they could see the fruits of their vision. Students and farmers worked side by side in the research fields. Local entrepreneurs led tours of their sustainable businesses. The community they'd built had become a model for agricultural innovation worldwide. But their greatest success played out in smaller moments. Rose explaining photosynthesis to her preschool class using real-time data from their crops. Morgan falling asleep, clutching both a tablet and a handful of heirloom seeds. The twins growing up knowing they didn't have to choose between worlds. They could nurture both, just as their parents had. "Ready for the meeting?" Jack asked, offering his hand. Sarah took it, feeling the familiar calluses that matched her own. "Always, though we should hurry. Mary's watching the twins this afternoon, and you know what that means. Cinnamon roll science experiments, complete with data collection and taste testing." They shared a laugh, heading toward the conference room where board members would join them virtually from around the world. The original ranch house had evolved alongside them, its restored bones now housing cutting-edge technology while maintaining its warm, welcoming heart. Their lives had followed the same pattern. Sarah still commanded global corporate respect, but now did so with dirt under her manicured nails and practical wisdom in her strategic planning. Jack's farming expertise had expanded to international agricultural policy, yet he still started every day, checking the soil with his own hands. And their love had grown like the strongest of crops, roots deep in fertile ground, reaching ever upward toward new possibilities. The woman who had hidden behind work clothes and the farmer who had lost hope of saving his land had found not just each other, but their truest selves. Outside, their twins' laughter mingled with the hum of agricultural innovation. Rose and Morgan, like the center itself, were living proof that with care and courage, different worlds could not only coexist, but flourish together, creating something richer and more vibrant than either could alone. The legacy they were growing extended far beyond corporate success or agricultural innovation. It bloomed in their children's understanding of both spreadsheets and soil samples, in the community they'd nurtured, in the future they'd planted together. Some love stories change, two hearts, but sometimes, if you're willing to get your hands dirty while reaching for the stars, they can change the world.